I took the fall for my brother, and he turned me in. I don't say that for sympathy. I say it because it's the truth, and the truth is the only thing I have left. Back then, I thought truth and family walked hand in hand. I thought loyalty meant something. I thought I was doing the right thing. I was wrong on all counts. It happened on a Wednesday night, late, the kind of night where everything feels too still, like the world's holding its breath, waiting for something to break. The rain had been coming down in sheets, soaking the cracked two-lane road that cut through the woods just outside of town. I was following behind Sean in my old Ford, keeping an eye on him, like always. He'd been drinking at Leo's place, bragging too loud, making too many promises. He always did that when he was nervous. I knew the signs. He shouldn't have been driving. Hell, he shouldn't have even had the keys. But he was stubborn and stupid and my brother, so I let him go, thinking I'd be right behind to clean up if something happened. And something happened. The scream of brakes, the dull, wet thud, headlights jerking wildly in the dark. I slammed to a stop and ran to the truck. Dad's old Chevy, now with a dent in the front grille, and a man lying motionless on the road. Sean stood by the driver's side, frozen, his hands trembling, his mouth open but no sound coming out. "Matt," he finally managed. I didn't let him finish. "Get in my truck, drive, go home, don't say a word, but go." Maybe it was instinct, maybe it was love, maybe it was just reflex after a lifetime of catching him before he hit the ground. I watched him drive away into the rain. Then I crouched down beside the man. He was gone. I checked his pulse out of some stupid hope, but I already knew. His eyes were open, staring through me. I sat there in the rain, soaked to the bone, beside a dead stranger. I didn't run, didn't move. When the police lights finally splashed red and blue across the trees, I raised my hands and told them I was the one driving. At the station I kept waiting, waiting for Sean to show up, waiting for him to call, waiting for him to walk in and say, "It was me. My brother was just trying to protect me." But all I got was a lawyer, paid in full, slick suit, empty eyes. "I'm here on behalf of Mr. Sean Carter," he said, sliding a file onto the metal table between us. "He's arranged everything. You'll plead guilty to involuntary manslaughter, no trial, 6 years, minimum security." I stared at him like he was speaking another language. He handed me an envelope. Inside was a single piece of paper, written in Sean's handwriting. This was the only way. "I'm sorry. It's better for both of us. Please don't contact me. Please don't contact me. 6 years. For something I didn't do. For someone who wouldn't even look me in the eye. They say when you go to prison you find out who you really are. I found out I was disposable. I also found out I could survive anything, even the betrayal that cut deeper than the sentence itself, because prison ends. Time moves, but some wounds, they stay fresh, especially the ones carved by blood. Freedom doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with a worn-out duffel bag, a paper envelope of gate money, and a guard who doesn't even look you in the eye when he hands you back your ID. The prison gates clanged shut behind me like punctuation. Period. End of sentence. I stood on the side of the road for a few minutes, breathing the air like it was something unfamiliar. It kind of was. It smelled like dust and diesel and last night's rain, and for a moment it hit me how much the world had moved on without me. 6 years is long enough for everything to change, but not long enough for anyone to wait. I hitched a ride into town with a guy hauling lumber in a flatbed truck. He asked what I did for a living. I told him I used to fix engines. He didn't ask what I did time for. Most people don't want the real answer. They want to believe you stole a car, got into a bar fight, something tidy. He dropped me at a truck stop diner that hadn't changed since I was a kid. Cracked linoleum floors, sticky menus, the same waitress with the beehive hairdo and tired smile. I sat in a booth by the window and ordered eggs and coffee. It was the best thing I'd tasted in years. The world outside looked the same, but I didn't feel part of it anymore. Like I was a ghost passing through. That afternoon I made a call. Sean's number was still burned into my memory like a scar. I almost didn't press it, but my thumb moved anyway. Voicemail. I cleared my throat. "Hey, it's me. I'm out. Pause. Not calling to fight. Just wanted you to know I made it." Another pause. My jaw tightened. "Hope you're doing all right." I hung up. His reply came 4 hours later. A text. No name, no warmth, just, "Glad you're out. Good luck, good luck." After 6 years of silence, that was all he had to say. Like I'd just gotten out of the hospital. Like I hadn't taken a bullet for him. I found a room in a rundown motel near the docks, the kind of place that rents by the week, no questions asked. The wallpaper was peeling, and the bed sagged in the middle, but I didn't care. It was mine. No bars, no roommates, no guards with clipboards. Work came fast. The port needed men who could lift heavy things and keep quiet. I could do both. Every morning I woke up sore. Every night I fell asleep exhausted. The routine kept my hands busy. It didn't do much for my mind. That's the thing about prison. It teaches you how to live with silence. But once you're out, it starts echoing. My neighbor in the next room was a guy named Clay. Loud voice, louder TV. He worked construction and chain smoked between beers. One night, over a shared six-pack on the motel balcony, he asked where I was from. Right here, I said. Born and raised. He squinted. Carter, right? Like Carter Motors? I tensed. What? He laughed. Man, you really been out of the loop. That place is everywhere now. Like they got shops in 3 counties. Billboards, TV ads. Your brother's some kind of local legend. I stared at him. He kept going. Guy did a radio interview last week. Said he built the business from nothing after some family trouble. Real rags to riches stuff. Kind of inspiring, if you're into that. He fumbled with his phone and played the clip. And there he was. Sean's voice smooth and polished, like he was born to sell something. I've made mistakes. My brother, well, he had a different way of handling things. I try not to follow his example. My stomach clenched. He'd turned me into a cautionary tale. What I felt was weight, a slow, dragging heaviness behind my ribs. I had stayed silent so he could have a future. I hadn't expected thanks, but I hadn't expected to be erased either. He didn't just move on. He rewrote the story, and now he was the hero. That night, I lay on the motel bed, staring at the cracked ceiling. I thought about all the hours I'd spent in my cell, counting the tiles, counting the days, clinging to the belief that maybe, just maybe, Sean would do the right thing, that he'd carry the guilt like I carried the time. But now I saw it clearly. He hadn't carried anything at all. He'd built his empire on my silence. And for the first time in 6 years, I didn't want to forget. I wanted him to remember. It was Derek who said it first. Prison doesn't end at the gate, it just gets quieter. I met him in the basement of a church that smelled like old carpet and lukewarm coffee. Every Thursday night, a dozen of us sat on folding chairs in a half circle and talked, or didn't, about the lives we'd left behind. Some were fresh out, still twitching from the noise. Others were years past the gate, wearing their freedom like a jacket that never quite fit. No one asked what you did. Everyone knew that wasn't the point. I didn't talk for the first few weeks, just listened, watched. But Derek noticed me anyway. He was the kind of guy who made people nervous, sharp eyes, always tapping his pen like he was keeping score. Around 5 feet 10 inches, wiry, 40-ish, with a smirk that didn't quite hide the bitterness under it. The kind of man who'd seen too much and laughed about it just enough to stay sane. He sat next to me one night after the meeting and handed me a stale donut. Figured you're the quiet type, he said. You either killed someone or took the fall for someone who did. I raised an eyebrow. He grinned. Don't worry, I'm not judging. I'm a fraud guy. Numbers, lies, signatures. You can tell a lot about a man by how he signs his name, you know? I didn't answer. He leaned back in his chair. Suit yourself. But if you ever need a guy who knows the system and doesn't ask dumb questions, I rent cheap. Derek wasn't lying. He knew people. Halfway house managers, DMV clerks, guys who could help with paperwork if you slipped him a 20 and didn't ask too many questions. He helped me get my ID reinstated, got me a post office box that didn't scream ex-con. He even found me a room in a trailer park on the edge of town. Quiet, anonymous, paid month to month in cash. It was the first time in weeks I didn't feel like I was living under a microscope. Over time, I started talking. Not much at first, just enough. I told him about Sean, about the accident, the silence, the text message. He whistled low. Man, that's not betrayal. That's Olympic-level betrayal. Your brother could teach a master class. I shrugged. He was scared. So were you. You just didn't run. That part stuck with me. One night, we sat outside my trailer drinking warm beer under a buzzing porch light. Derek was fiddling with a lighter, flicking the flame on and off. "You ever want to get back at him?" he asked. I didn't answer right away. He looked at me sideways. "I'm not saying hurt him. I'm saying, what if he had to live inside the same kind of silence he left you in? Not jail, not violence, just the wait. The waiting." I sipped my beer. "You mean make him think the walls are closing in, even if they're not?" I let that settle. "I don't want to ruin his life," I said finally. "I just want him to understand what it feels like to beg and get nothing, to sit in the dark and wonder if today's the day your past catches up." Derek smiled. "Now that's poetic." It wasn't about revenge. Not really. It was about reflection, about showing him the mirror I'd lived in for 6 years, cracked, dirty, but still clear enough to see the truth. We started planning small. No illegal stunts, no violence, just enough to tap the glass. I remembered things from my mechanic days, how easy it was to fake a service report, how a single anonymous call could trigger an inspection, how one misplaced invoice could make a man sweat if he had something to hide. We weren't looking to burn his empire, we were going to haunt it. Derek called it ethical sabotage. I called it balance, because Sean had taught me silence. Now it was his turn to listen. There's an art to haunting someone. You don't scream. You don't slash tires or leave dead animals on their porch. That's amateur hour. No, if you want to truly haunt someone, you make them doubt themselves, their memory, their decisions, their safety. You let the silence in first. Sean's main garage was immaculate. All polished floors, chrome signage, espresso machine in the lobby. They wore matching uniforms, had a sleek app for booking service, and the kind of digital check-in screen you only see in luxury dealerships. It made me sick. He'd taken everything I taught him about running a shop, the trust, the efficiency, the attention to detail, and used it to build his own kingdom on the bones of mine. So I started with a crack. Late one night while the parking lot was empty and the cameras hadn't yet been upgraded, I smashed a small window in the side of the storage room. Not enough to raise alarms, just enough to trigger questions. I left behind a crowbar I'd picked up at a junk sale, wiped clean of fingerprints but smeared with motor oil, the exact brand Sean's shop used. That was phase 1. Phase 2 was quieter. I took an old USB drive and loaded it with doctored financial reports, invoices with mismatched numbers, ghost vendors, small but questionable deposits. Sloppy work, just messy enough to look like someone inside was hiding something. I labeled the folder Q4 Revisions, Confidential. Then I left the flash drive tucked beneath the receptionist's desk in the waiting room, taped to the underside like it had been dropped and forgotten. Within 2 days, someone found it, and Sean noticed. Derek was better with paper than I was. He forged a few copies of Sean's signature, not to use, but to plant. He based it off an old contract we'd found online, a PDF Sean once proudly posted when he landed a sponsorship with the regional racing team. We didn't use the signature to sign anything illegal. We just made it look like it had been used. On a letter addressed to the state tax board, on an application to an insurance fund that no longer existed. Then we mailed them, from different post offices on different days, each with a single line of concern written in shaky handwriting. "Thought you should see this. Something's off." We sent another copy to the local paper, the kind that lives for a good local scandal, faster when it's quiet and vague. "Did you hear about Carter Motors?" I heard someone filed a report. My buddy's cousin said the IRS flagged one of their payments. No one could say for sure what was happening, but the whispers grew teeth. Customers started canceling appointments. One of Sean's managers quit, said she felt a shift in the culture. Sean responded like any guilty man would, with more control. He installed new cameras, switched all his locks, started showing up at odd hours, reviewing tapes himself. He stopped smiling in interviews, declined a speaking event at the local college. I watched it all from my trailer, where my walls were lined with blueprints, receipts, and handwritten notes. The place looked like a war bunker built by an obsessive mechanic. Derek stopped by every other day to drink coffee and throw out ideas. "Ever notice how easy it is to make powerful men paranoid?" he mused, flipping through a copy of the newspaper. "Especially the ones who know they're standing on someone else's shoulders." I nodded. He still thinks he's untouchable, but he's flinching. One night, I sat alone in the corner booth of Lucky's bar, the place where all the town's gossip congealed in the form of cheap beer and louder stories. I nursed a bottle and listened. You hear Sean Carter fired that kid Josh, the one who handles accounts? No kidding. My buddy said Sean was pacing like a lunatic last Tuesday. Had the cops come by too? Something's going down. I wouldn't trust that place right now. I didn't smile, not because I didn't feel satisfied, but because this wasn't about destruction. This was about erosion, the same kind I'd felt day after day, year after year, locked away while the world told a different version of my story. Back at my trailer, Derek pinned another article to the corkboard. It was a nothing piece, a rumor roundup column in the Gazette, but it mentioned Carter Motors by name. A string of anonymous reports and financial confusion has cast a haze of uncertainty over one of the town's fastest-growing businesses. He leaned back, lit a cigarette. You ever gonna tell him it's you? I shook my head. He's already having that conversation with himself every night. Derek exhaled. So what's next? I glanced at the board where Sean's name sat in the middle, circled in red ink. Nothing. Not yet. Let him twist. He hadn't caught the ghost. But he was already afraid to walk in the dark. Paranoia doesn't start with screaming. It starts with silence that feels just a little too sharp. A message that goes unanswered. A paper that looks off. A number that doesn't match. It starts with doubt, and then it festers. Sean started making mistakes. Small ones at first, firing a junior mechanic over a missing part, yelling at the receptionist for scheduling too many appointments in one day. But then came the big ones. He fired his general manager, a woman named Dana who'd been with him since the beginning, right in front of staff and clients. Witnesses said he was red-faced, trembling, barking accusations about stolen files and disloyalty. The next morning, the shop's social media page was filled with confused comments. Is everything okay over there? I heard something happened. Are you guys still open? We were told our service was canceled with no explanation. Sean didn't respond to the comments. He responded to me. The first message was short. Matt, we need to talk. I ignored it. Then came a voicemail, his voice forced casual. Hey, look, I don't know what's going on. I mean, I do, but I think we should meet. Just talk it through. You know, like adults. No drama. I didn't reply. Another day, another message. Come on, man. Don't make this into something ugly. Ugly. 6 years in prison was ugly. 6 birthdays missed. Mom's funeral I couldn't attend. Watching the world forget my name while he wore my legacy like it was his birthright. This was justice in the mirror. I kept tabs on him through mutual acquaintances and the internet. His movements became erratic. He stopped showing up for interviews, started arriving late to his own meetings, pulled his cars into the garage instead of leaving them in the open. He'd changed all the locks, added 2 more security cameras, installed a buzzer system at the front door, even though the town wasn't exactly crime central. He was unraveling, and he knew it, but didn't know why. One of Carter Motors' satellite branches, the one in Halford, shut down for maintenance, but I knew better. Word got out that the IRS had flagged one of the business accounts. Temporary audit, they said. His accountant quit the next day. Apparently, she didn't like the way he'd started talking to himself in the office. Said she didn't feel safe anymore. I watched it all unfold from the corner of a booth at the bar, or from my trailer couch with Derek beside me, sipping coffee and grinning like a proud uncle at a science fair. He's imploding, Derek said, scrolling through the local business pages on his phone. Classic narcissist collapse, the mask is cracking. I nodded slowly. But it's not enough yet. What's the final push? He asked. I already knew. It took me weeks to find the original box. The one Sean had filled with fake evidence all those years ago. It had been in the garage attic, tucked behind crates of unused parts and old banners from our racing days. It still had my name on it, in Sharpie, as if he needed to brand it. I didn't add anything. I didn't change anything. I just brought it back. One night I let myself into his office using a copy of the key I'd made before prison. He'd changed the locks on the garage, sure, but not on the old door to the private office. Sean was thorough, but never consistent. The office still smelled like cedar polish and anxiety. I placed the box on the center of his desk. When he found it the next morning, he didn't scream. He froze. I know because his assistant texted someone I knew. He just stared at it, wouldn't touch it, like it was a bomb. He shut the blinds, locked the door, and disappeared for the rest of the day. That night he called again, 7 times. Each call went to voicemail. On the 8th try, he left another message. This time, no pretense. I know it's you. I know. You think this is funny? You think I don't see what you're doing? You want to ruin me? Fine. You win. Just stop. Just stop. Please. His voice cracked on the last word. Derek played the message twice, then looked over at me. You ready to end it? I stared at the wall of notes, photos, diagrams, the chaos that had become my sanctuary. Derek raised an eyebrow. No? He's not broken, I said quietly. He's scared. That's not the same. I wasn't after destruction. I was after understanding, and that took more than fear. Sean was living every day the way I had, trapped, helpless, questioning everything. But unlike me, he had no one to blame but himself. And that, I figured, was the cruelest punishment of all. He showed up just after dawn. No call, no warning, just the sound of tires crunching gravel outside my trailer. I was already awake, sitting at the small kitchen table with a mug of black coffee in my hands, watching the steam rise like it had something to say. The knock was soft, hesitant, like someone hoping the door wouldn't open. I opened it anyway. Sean stood there, or what was left of him. His clothes hung loose like they didn't recognize the body they covered. His face was pale, jaw clenched, eyes sunken with the kind of sleeplessness that comes not from insomnia, but from fear. There was a tremble in his hands, and the shadows under his eyes looked painted on. He was shaking. Matt, he said. He walked in like a man walking into court. He didn't sit, just stood in the middle of the trailer, looking around like it was the most foreign place on earth. His voice cracked before it even had weight. Do you want me in jail? Is that what this is? I sipped my coffee. I'm already half there, you know, he went on, louder now. I haven't slept in weeks. I've got audits, investigations, lawyers breathing down my neck, people quitting left and right. I can't tell what's real anymore. His hands curled into fists. Do you want me dead, Matt? Is that it? You want me to snap? I stayed seated, calm, steady. No, I said. I want you to know what it feels like. He stared at me, chest heaving. What feels like? To wait, I said. To wonder. To be afraid of a knock at the door, a letter in the mail, a name you recognize in the news. To sit in silence and not know if your life is about to collapse. I leaned back, my voice level. I wanted you to feel the weight I carried, just for a little while. His mouth opened like he wanted to argue, then closed. He sat down across from me, finally, and for a moment we were just two men at a table, brothers, wreckage between us, and nothing left to throw. I didn't know how to stop it, he whispered. I said nothing. I kept thinking, if I told the truth I'd go to jail, you'd hate me, Mom would. He didn't finish the sentence. She died thinking I was the good one, he said, eyes glassy. I stood next to her bed, knowing what I did, and she thanked me for being strong. Tears clung to his lashes. I was a coward. Now I said something. Yes, you were. He nodded, didn't argue. I watched you rot in a cell, he said. I saw you in the paper, heard people whisper your name like it meant danger. I told myself that was the price of keeping things together, that if I kept building something good, maybe it would balance out. He laughed bitterly. But all I built was a lie. I looked at him then, really looked. For the first time, he wasn't the slick, smirking version of my brother, the one who had always gotten away with everything. He was a man cracked open, raw, hollowed out by the same silence he'd once shoved me into. You built a cage, I said, and now you're in it. He wiped his face with his sleeve, still shaking. So what now? He asked. You finish me off? Turn me in? Tell the world? I shook my head slowly. I don't need to destroy you. You've done that yourself. He closed his eyes. I can't go back to who I was, he said. Good, I replied. That version of you never deserved what he got. We sat in silence for a long while. Finally, I stood and opened the door. You have a choice, I said. Walk away. Sell the business, start fresh, or stay and watch the rest of it eat you alive. Sean stood too, slower than me. His eyes flicked to the door, then back to me. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, he said quietly. You're not supposed to do anything, I said. You're supposed to choose. He hesitated, then nodded once, and walked out without another word. I didn't watch him drive away. I didn't need to. Some ghosts only leave when you stop holding the door shut. It's been 6 months. The world didn't end. No fireworks, no apologies printed on the front page, just time. Quiet, steady, unremarkable time. And I've learned to live inside it. I rent a small place on the edge of town now. It's nothing special. 1 bedroom, a sloping porch, and a leaky faucet I still haven't fixed, but the air feels clean. The silence doesn't feel like punishment anymore. It feels earned. I work part-time at a community garage, nothing flashy. I help fix engines, train the younger guys, and drink bad coffee from a chipped mug I don't bother replacing. At night, I write. The blog started as a way to keep my head straight. I called it Time Served, just a few posts about life after prison, about guilt and survival and the strange shape of freedom. I didn't think anyone would read it, but people did. Other men who'd been inside, women with brothers or fathers doing time, strangers who said they didn't understand but wanted to. Some days the comments break my heart. Other days they remind me why I made it through. I don't write about Sean, not directly anyway. I haven't heard from him since that morning in my trailer. I don't know where he went. He shut down Carter Motors a week after our conversation, sold the brand to some out-of-town buyer who turned it into a chain. His house went up for sale not long after. His name vanished from the local paper. I'd like to say I don't think about him, but that would be a lie. I think about him most often at night, when the world quiets down and I'm left with a long stretch of memory. Not with anger, not anymore, just with a strange kind of weightless grief, not for what he did, but for what we both lost. Last week, I checked the P.O. box I rarely use anymore. It's mostly bills and junk now, flyers for pizza places I've never tried. But this time, there was a single envelope, no return address. Inside was a small sheet of paper. Typed, simple, clean. You were right, I don't sleep, but at least now, it's honest. No name, no signature. But I knew who it was from. I folded the paper once, carefully, and slipped it into a drawer next to a wrench and an old photograph of me and Sean when we were kids. Greasy hands, wide grins, a rusted-out car between us that we'd sworn we'd fix together. We never did. Some things aren't meant to be fixed. I stepped out onto the porch as the sun dipped low behind the trees. The air smelled like gasoline and pine needles and the distant hint of rain. I stood there a long time, not waiting, just breathing. Sometimes justice isn't about punishment. It's about no longer carrying the weight.